from the top, welcome everyone. Finally, sorry about all that too. The Myth and Goal Q&A. I'm Scott McFall, brand director of Blacklist Games, and I'm joined by Adam and Brady Sadler, VPs of Product Development. And we're here to talk to you guys, answer some questions, and of course, celebrate the fact that we funded. So that's awesome. We're super happy. If you guys,
Screw the funding. We got rid of the echo. That's what matters.
the echo, that's all that matters. Well, we should unlock a goal just for that. Okay, I shouldn't say those kind of things. People are gonna hold me to them. But yeah, so if you guys take a look at the campaign page, you'll see it's been updated. So you have unlocked the funding goal, which is really awesome 3D gatehouse miniatures. So you're gonna put those on your on your board, and you'll be able to like even look through the ring. You'll have to shoot the token through them if you really want to.
Yeah, I was just saying, you can try to flick that token through there, maybe do it.
Yeah, that should be a house rule. If you can't actually flick it, you don't get the points. Right, so we got that. Super excited about, and we've also officially revealed the first stretch goal, which is an imposing ogre, a new free agent.
Do we show the graphic finally? I did not look at the page since we funded.
There. We removed the question marks and we removed the silhouette, so now people can see him. Well, in his black and white glory, anyways. Maybe he'll be colored in once we unlock him. All right, so good. So yeah, once again, there is a slight lag here between our interactions and what you guys are seeing at home. So bear with us a little bit, but just to get the ball rolling, I got a few questions, I guess, that I'd like to ask the bros. And I always say bros, brothers. Sorry, I don't know what you guys prefer, but I think
anything, call us whatever you want.
I'll just jump in with some questions, and you guys can answer them. If you think you want to here. So first things first, I guess one thing that we're getting a lot of questions about is just generally what was the inspiration for the project? What led to us, wanting to make a fantasy sports game?
So that's my fault here. I was gonna say it's the NCAA football game for Sega Genesis we played all the time.
Yeah,
we played that a lot as a kid. I think that was our first football experience, was playing that for Sega Genesis. But ironically, we're not like biggest. We used to play baseball a lot, but we were never big football fans. But for some reason, I've always loved the idea of like fantasy football. There was a Mutant League football video game also we played as kids.
That was definitely one of my mainstays for sure. Yeah.
So but ever since I got into Blood Bowl years ago, I kind of it appealed to me because of those things I played as a kid. I like the idea of just these teams of fantasy races playing a sport. And like going through league and like getting better skills and injuries and all that stuff. It just felt cool to me.
I think it also pulls on that whole appeal that people have with just fantasy games in general, because it really leans into the whole faction aspect, where you have these teams that are very thematic and they're really distinct from each other. So the team aspect is a big pull for why the sports thing works so well with fantasy.
Yeah, and so getting into like Blood Bowl really got me into it even more. And then when Blitz Bowl came out, I was actually kind of blown away because it took so much of what I liked about Blood Bowl, but condensed it down into like a very quick playing, like 30-minute game. And it was like, oh man, I want Blood Bowl to be more like this. But I just want a little bit more. So that feeling never went away. I've always wanted to just have a game like Blitz Bowl, but more. And I actually got to talking to James Hewitt. We discussed, just game design experiences when I worked at FFG. FFG had a license to GW, so we partnered with a lot of games.
Right.
And James worked at GW, and so him and I would share stories about our experiences. And then I got to talking to him, saying, hey, you know what, James, would you ever want to do what you do with Blitz Bowl for Blacklist, but just a little bit more? And I've also seen, lots of companies doing, like third-party companies doing miniatures for Blood Bowl. So they would offer Blood Bowl teams on Kickstarter. I was like, you know what, we can just kind of do something like this where we could make a cool game that actually, could appeal to Blood Bowl players who just want more miniatures. Like maybe some people just don't want to assemble miniatures. They want our single piece, easy to pop out and play miniatures. So that kind of got me thinking about, that whole idea, and it just kind of spiraled from there, and everybody got excited about it, and that's kind of where Myth and Goal came from.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited that we're working on it. You mentioned, Mutant League football, and there was Mutant League hockey back in the day. So that kind of fantasy sports thing. I grew up with the video games more than the tabletop stuff. But I'm super excited that we're able to set foot into this realm. And well, speaking of all these other fantasy sports games and stuff, what makes Myth and Goal stand out? I guess that's a question we're getting a lot too. Like, well, okay, I mean, I see all these other ones. What's Myth and Goal's special thing?
So I think right out of the gate, the most important thing that sets it apart is the fact that you can play solo, which is something that I actually wanted a lot from games like Blood Bowl, because I like the game, but I don't always have an opponent to play, and when I feel like playing it, I want to play it. So instead of just designing my own solo mode for a game, it's cool to have one that's just right out of the box. You can pop it out and play, not only play solo, but you can play like a whole league solo if you wanted. And the game comes with 4 teams, so you can have a nice mix of teams.
That's important.
Yeah,
I think. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I mean, I think that's important to know that like having the 4 teams in the core box right from the get go. That's pretty good. I mean, a lot of selections and a lot of customization options. We'll get to those later. But yeah, sorry, Brady, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say also one of the things that I take away from it, because Adam got me into Blood Bowl because they have a halfling team, so I played Blood Bowl because of the halfling team. And they're awful. That's the whole joke, they're just terrible. They can't win, even though I beat you like several times. But then like coming in from Blood Bowl into a game like Blitz Bowl, where it's quicker paced and it's a little more focused. I like that a lot more. And then I think Myth and Goal goes even further because it abstracts enough, because it keeps the tactical nature and it's granular enough through the card effects and the dice and everything like that. But it abstracts enough that it's unique and it's very elegant, and it's much more fluid. So that's a big thing that sets it apart from those games in particular. So,
right, yeah, I just like personally like the fatigue management system. I think that's really cool. Definitely opens up all sorts of possibilities and definitely makes you think a lot before you act, which I like.
Yeah, I think that's what James would actually, the designer James Hewitt and Sophie Williams are the designers for the game from Needy Cat Games. I think James would kind of call that to be the big difference, is that fatigue management where you're constantly trying to decide how much you want to push your players. Because in games like Blood Bowl, usually your extra players are like if somebody dies or somebody gets injured, it's like I got to put somebody else in the field. It's not really because they're tired, or they need a break. So that's a nice differentiation between this one and other games.
Yeah,
and I'd also just say the game weight itself, the weight of the mechanics and stuff, I feel like it falls right in between the 2 most popular ones, Blood Bowl and Blitz Bowl. It falls right in between those, probably leaning closer to Blitz Bowl because it plays quicker. Usually Blood Bowl is like a 3.5 hour affair.
Right.
Which, nothing wrong with that. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But you can't play it very often,
Yeah. I personally, I felt that, teaching Myth and Goal to a new person recently, or, teaching a few people, was a lot easier than the bigger one. So yeah, I definitely understand what you mean by falling right in between there. But going back to the fact that one of the big differentiators with this one is solo capabilities. We got a lot of questions and a lot of people going, oh, solo, it's probably, tacked on or some afterthought or something, like the head-to-head experience is probably the big thing that they're concentrating on. Can you explain why that's not the case and why the solo mode is like worth owning the game for alone, like on its own?
Oh yeah, I can assure you, I bet James and Sophie would wish that it was tacked on.
Yeah, I was gonna say we were gonna say, well, we'll figure out a solo mode for it. But then when we met with them and they presented their idea, I'm like, no, you guys are you'll handle this. I mean, this is great. Hopefully, it's not too much work. But I mean, the pitch was awesome. So.
Yeah, I mean, every team has their own strategy board. So like every team has their own strategies that they prefer, whether they have the ball or they not have the ball, or whether they're the aggressor or the defender. So there's a lot of options between teams alone, and then you throw in the behavior deck, and you can play against an agile dwarf team or a nimble dwarf team, or like a very imposing elf team. You can kind of mix and match who you play against. They have their own strategies, but the behavior deck kind of determines what they do with their team abilities.
Right.
So the strategy is, it's very difficult to AI something, make a solo mode for something like this, because most co-op games that we've played and had experience with are kind of like usually like fighting games and stuff where you have enemies and they have to go and fight you. It's like, oh, if you're close to an enemy, go hit them or go shoot them or doing a special ability. But with a game like Myth and Goal, if anybody hasn't watched the Not Board Gaming playthrough where Mark Dainty just stomps all over Scott
Spoilers,
here.
man.
You might want to check that out because there are so many decisions to make in this. It's a simple game, it's the rules are pretty simple, but there are so many decisions to make. So trying to replicate that into a scripted AI is a challenge, and I think that they did a really great job with it.
Yeah, one thing I want to add too, because typically, I mean, I play a lot of solo games. I mean, we've designed a lot of games that are co-op, but they're geared to be very, very solo friendly. And even when we have sometimes approached solo games, we're not doing so to kind of create a human opponent, like they can think through the different situations that are going through. We kind of just want to create a cool challenge, some randomness, some chaos, and just see if you can get through that. But this is presented more in a way where it's like here are these boards are going to tell you how this opponent's going to think, and it's much more like how an actual opponent would kind of process these different situations. So it was very impressive to see it mocked up, and it's been coming together so nicely.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the only thing I'll add is that I'm super impressed with it. The fact that it's not just do this kind of workflow. There is some of that, but everything is also determined by how the game is going for the AI, how the positioning is happening on the field, and the various behavior decks. I like that it's super unpredictable, even though there is still some checking of a checklist. It's really neat. We have a video on the Kickstarter page where James walks you through how it works. I definitely recommend checking it out. We're also going to have shortly working on that a brief how to play of the head-to-head version as well. So that'll be like a companion piece. So keep your eyes open for that. So we're gonna get to some questions from the audience soon. I just want to go through a few other ones here that I think are important to touch on. Well, obviously we have solo play in the box, and we're touting that there's many ways to play this game. So you can do the whole one-shot games, or the contests as we call them. But what's really cool is that we also include league rules in the base game, which is huge. So from what I can tell, you're not only able to use them, in the head-to-head game with friends, you can also use them against the AI. So, I mean, I don't know, you want to talk about how the league rules work in general, maybe? Just like an overview, like what sort of advancement you can look forward to, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we can do like an overview, but I think James is going to share more details about like the specifics of how,
Right.
the mechanics work in the league. But again, to just preface it, it's going to be a lot more approachable, and there's some stuff abstracted as opposed to more granular league play like Blood Bowl and stuff. So it's really just a way to play groups of games, with your friends, and also your players improve. You get new things. You can upgrade your team in different ways. And that's usually done through advancement cards, which again we'll go into detail more later. But yes, the whole concept of Myth and Gold, like a lot of Blacklist games in general, is we kind of want to focus on modularity, just different ways to combine different elements of the game to kind of play the way you want to play it. And that's kind of where the league rules fit in, where you can play, like Scottie said, you can play league rules with your friends in the normal head-to-head mode. You can play it by yourself with AI. You can do a mix and match where you can play league with your friends and then run an AI game to you have an extra player that has nobody to play that day. Well, they can just play AI, and you can have like the dwarf team be AI because nobody wants to play the dwarves. Who wants to play dwarves?
I do.
No offense. But yeah, the modularity is good. You can also use the optional free agent rules, which is another modular element where every character in the game has a free agent version. So every named character in the core box, you also get a free agent version of that player. So it kind of, every miniature has like double purpose. And that way you can kind of with the free agent rules, you can kind of build your own custom team to just for fun, like whatever combination of players you want to have.
Right. And I think in one of the designer diaries, which we'll also show during the updates during the campaign, James had mentioned that not only like standard free agent use, I think you replace 2 guys in your team with free agents, but I think there's also like an all-star mode that he's talking about where you can just go nuts and just go nothing but free agents. That should be pretty interesting, having a dwarf, an orc, an elf, and who knows what else.
Yeah. I think it's a cool option to be there, just because it's like, it's a way, you don't have to worry about like army building. It's like, I have to have this many points no, it's like you can pick whatever combination of players you want. And I think I saw a comment asking like, how would you balance a strong player like an ogre? Well, the way that things are balanced in this game is because not everything is just like, it's not just about pulverizing your enemy. You're playing a game with 5 guys on the pitch or 5 guys on the board, and they have to all contribute in some way. And so if you have an ogre that might be really strong and really good at tackling people, he's probably really slow and he's horrible at evading. So he's probably going to fall over and be useless. And plus, fatigue plays a big part of it. So like some guys might have a really low fatigue value, like threshold, where they can't do very much on their turn. But maybe a little halfling can do a whole bunch because he's quick and he's got a lot of energy. He had a blueberry muffin before that period.
Well,
It's just better all around. He's a better player all around.
those halflings are the best. But yeah, so you're talking about pummeling your opponent and stuff like that. I guess the last question I've got for you before we take some questions from the viewers is I'm a big fan of chaos in fantasy sports. Again, going back to Mutant League stuff. So how are we injecting that into the game somehow at all? Like ways to like mess with your opponent and maybe the game messing with everyone?
Yes, I would say in multiple ways. And the most simple, the obvious ways, what we just discussed was in AI mode. The behavior deck is what throws things off in AI mode or solo mode. Is that behavior deck can change things up drastically and unexpectedly.
So it goes off script a bit. So yeah. So you're not just always going through the processes.
So yeah, like every team has a strategy, and that these are the things they want to do, but the behavior deck might change up how they do it. And then the other way is the tactic cards are actually the most foundational way to change the game up. And again, I'll reference the playthrough video that Not Board Gaming did with Scottie and Mark. There were a couple times in that game where someone was going a certain way, and they were sure that was, I got this in the bag, and then bam, I had a tactics card that turned this partial success into a full success. And it just, it's those nice things, those cool things where it kind of throws your plans for a loop. But everybody has access to them, which is cool.
Right.
And also you can kind of customize which ones you take every period. You can build your team how you want and what kind of strategy you want to do.
Right.
On top of that, we if you've seen the social goals, you saw like a little tactic in there. There might be some other cool stuff coming that way too.
Now I'm very curious. I might know, but maybe I don't.
Yeah, you don't know, Scott.
I know nothing. I'm like Jon Snow. Oh, is that a dated reference by now? I don't know.
That's dated. You're old.
All right, so let's scroll back up here. Got a lot of comments and questions. Okay. Bloop doop doop doop. Getting rid of an echo stretch goal. I don't know what you guys are talking about, so we'll just keep moving. Our full
maybe the echo stretch goals are like duplicate models or something. Oh, we got that taken care of.
Yeah. Is a full solo playthrough coming?
You know what I mean? It's referenced to, right?
Yeah. Okay, making sure. I know. I get the reference. Sorry, Scotty. Brady distracted me.
It's all good, man. Yeah, so I don't know if you heard the question, but yeah. So, is there a full solo playthrough coming, or some way for people to experience a full solo experience during the campaign?
I think that we're what the plan is to get the solo tabletop simulator mod ready during the campaign so people can try it out. That's the goal. I'll have to check in with James to see where we are with that. And I mean, I think there are a couple assets we were just trying to finish up to make sure that was good to go. But again, the tabletop simulator mod, it should be noted that it's still in development, obviously. So the solo mode is where it's at currently. Obviously, it can and will probably change just little parts of it because things always change in playtesting. We just want to make sure we have the best product possible. So we playtest as much as we can.
Right. So yeah, overall, there is a TTS mod for solo play coming soon. We hope to have it in campaign momentarily, so everyone can try it out and see what we're talking about and what James is highlighting in his video there. This is an interesting one. I guess I'll let you guys answer this. But Dan here asks, Dan Helliga, he loves us. Hey, best of luck. Thanks. Really appreciate it.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to call out that Mark said that if the mod is ready, he'd be happy to do a full playthrough. So we'll probably hold him to that.
Excellent. Yes. Good old Mark, man. You can always trust Mark. He's awesome.
He knows the game now. He's a pro orc player.
Yes.
So.
Yes. No, sorry. He's awesome unless he's on the mythball field. Then he's my mortal enemy. Yeah. So Dan Helliga is asking. So he's at first. Best of luck. Love you guys. Super appreciated, Dan. Love seeing you back for another campaign. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Dan.
So is there a chance for a co-op story mode? So we have a lot of story in this game, a lot of lore, but what do you guys think?
That would be something that I wouldn't want to cram it in, so it wasn't planned. But that's a cool idea that like maybe if this game can be successful down the road, like maybe
Like
if we expand it
the
more,
the
that'd be really
ruffians
cool.
on the road.
But I want something thought out.
Yeah, maybe if this game does well, we'll have a season 2, and we
have
can
a little
convince
have a little
James.
dungeon crawl or throwing the ball down dungeon corridors and stuff.
It will be like the training montage expansion.
Yeah. You got to have that.
That's
awesome
a
80s
cool
music.
concept though. Definitely like where you're going with that, Dan.
I think we already answered Alex Paderberg's question about how you balance ogres and other ogres, or ogres versus humans and stuff.
Yep.
Um,
That's the one that I saw when we were talking, so I was hoping to touch on that.
so Michael Della Valle, hey, what's up, Michael? You're another one of our mainstay backers. Really appreciate you coming back. He's basically asking if co-op would be a thing, having 2 players on the same team or something like that.
I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, if we wanted to, have a team and we just, decide who we're going to like manage essentially, then you could do that. It wouldn't be an official capacity, but
we actually discussed that early on, and we were trying to shove too much into the game. We were like, we got to cut some things, and so that was one that was cut early on, was like a full-on co-op, 2 team versus 2 team type thing. But the way the game plays is, every turn you get 4 actions. So it'd be very easy to team up with somebody and be like, all right, these are my 2 actions, those are your 2 actions. And then the other team, they split their actions up, and you kind of just collaborate on the best way to run your team.
Yeah.
So you can have like a coach and assistant coach, because, he's
there are a lot of solitaire war games where it's kind of the same thing. They say if you want to play co-op, you just split up your forces, and there are a lot of games that doesn't always work well, but a lot of games like this where you have very distinct, you have distinct players, distinct actions, and you have a lot of discussion. I think it worked pretty well. So
to some, it's not officially in the rules, but with enough creativity, you can make it happen as long as you guys are working together.
Not out of the realm of possibility for the future.
Yeah, it's something we've discussed, and if it's possible to do in the future, then we would definitely look into it. So.
Okay, cool. So Alexander Padberg has essentially 2 questions I'm going to smush together. He's essentially asking how, let's talk about league and advancement, I guess, more than anything else. And I know we said James might elaborate more in the future, but for now, the question is generally, how do experience points work, and how different will teams end up looking if, let's say, you have an orc team versus an orc team? Like with advancement, are they going to look very different from one another after a while with the advancement?
Well, I would say it all depends on the choices you make. There's not going to be like a ton of like tracking XP and star player points that other games do, where it's going to be much simpler. But again, we'll let James get into more of the details about that when we get there. But one of the cool things is, like, if you're playing an orc team versus an orc team, you can start off different because you can choose a whole different focus in it. Like, I can be a nimble orc team, and you can be like a dirty playing orc team. So right off the bat, you can start different, and then when you're doing upgrades. The advancement cards, you can differentiate those by different players getting different ones. And also you can differentiate yourself further with the free agent rules. So if I'm playing an orc team, maybe I want to hire on a couple dwarves or something to work with me, because dwarves love orcs.
Yeah.
Just to mix it up. So there's a lot of options to keep them different without getting too granular in like the, tons of skill tables and tracking XP and all that stuff, where we're trying to keep the game a lot more approachable and quick playing and simpler. So
right. And I know that a designer diary that James wrote does have a bit more details about league advancement and stuff like that. So that's definitely going to be one of the updates in the campaign. So just keep watching, and hopefully that'll answer some of your questions.
And I did see a comment about dragging James on one of these, and we definitely will ask him to join us, because we'd love to have him and chat about stuff in more detail from a game design perspective.
For sure, yeah. I mean, there's a time difference since he is UK based and we're in North America, but we can definitely make it happen, and we want to make it happen. So keep following, and hopefully we'll get him on soon.
Yeah.
So I'm just going through a couple of things here really quick. Well, actually, at this point, we'll let some more questions accumulate. So what we can do now is, I guess we can take a look at some of the minis that we have in here. Now, I just realized that I might not have the right setup here. So if the sound cuts out, bear with me for a second, everyone. You know how it is. First time things. All right, let me do this here. Switch over to an empty football field. You guys should hear me. Okay, guys, you still there?
I still hear you.
Okay, so if everyone in the chat could just confirm they still hear me and they still hear the brothers, that'd be awesome.
I still hear you.
I still hear you. Yeah,
You still
but
hear
yeah,
ya?
I hear you through my computer, so not necessarily the YouTube things.
Yeah. We'll just make sure everyone confirms in the chat, or someone confirms in the chat. No echoes or anything. This should work, according to my limited knowledge of how this thing works. It's a little bit of a lag there, so we gotta let it catch up.
I can pull up my YouTube and check.
Yeah, that could work too, I suppose.
Yep.
I do hear you.
You hear me? You hear yourselves as well? Hopefully there isn't an echo. Okay, perfect. We got a thumbs up. All right,
Yep.
cool. So let's start off with who we got here. We got Wallace King, the Charger for the Belhurst Imperials. So he's definitely one of my personal favorites, which is why I put him put him first. So yeah, we're really happy about him. A lot of cool details there. So I don't know, guys, feel free to jump in with any sort of instructions you gave the sculptor or any inspirations and things like that. But
So
oh, go ahead.
yeah, this is actually good because I was going to talk about this as well because this again the miniatures part of my responsibilities in this project. I'm kind of in charge of the miniatures, design and direction and everything. And it's something that I was very excited about because like I said, I'm a big fan of fantasy football miniature games, particularly the big ones. I play a lot of Blood Bowl and I collect a lot of Blood Bowl miniatures, so I kind of had an idea about what I wanted. And what I wanted was to make sure that this game was unique in how it used players and positions and everything like that, but also that it could be interchangeable with people that already have a big collection of miniatures that they want to use their own for, or they want to take these into other games and it still makes sense.
Right.
So I kind of lined up what I worked with James very closely to see what kind of positions we wanted in this game, and a lot of them kind of lined up with like existing Blood Bowl positionals. And one, for example, would be like blitzers. Blitzers in Blood Bowl are like the star players of the team. They're like the best players. They're showboaty and they're fast and strong and they have the best gear usually. And that's kind of what Chargers are like in this game. Chargers are kind of like the most aggressive players. They're the guys you send in to knock people down and clear the path for your team. And this guy is clearly pointing at his target, and he's like, "I'm coming." I always see that scene in like football, like clips or movies somewhere. Someone's like pointing at someone, like when right before the hike. It's like, "I'm coming." That was all about.
Right.
Oh, I lost it.
Yeah, so I was just flipping back to show our faces, and I realized that it doesn't keep the settings, so I have to keep turning them on and off. So bear with me, everyone. Thanks again for your patience. We're gonna get there. We should be good again now.
Yep, I see him now.
So let's bring on another Belhurst Imperial. We have a Sentinel this time, Alexandra Stone. While we're talking about Chargers and Sentinels, you want to give me a quick rundown, maybe the difference between a Charger and a Sentinel?
Yep. Oh, someone said there's an echo.
Yeah, there was briefly an echo. Sorry about that, guys. I had to switch another thing on.
Is the echo gone? Check.
It should be gone now. Yeah, it was because I was switching scenes. Sorry, guys.
So this is actually an important point. Alexandra Stone is I wanted to make sure that we had females well represented in the teams where it made sense. And again, humans make sense to have female players. It's something that I've seen more often now in other games, but I wanted to make sure we had female players. And so a Sentinel is actually a version of, it's kind of like the generalists of the team. Like they're kind of good at guarding the line, but they're not like super defensive. They're flexible. They're typical like linemen,
Mm-hmm.
So in other games, I keep referencing Blood Bowl because it's the most commonly used one, and everybody knows that one. They have linemen is like a very common position in that game. And you can have a lot of linemen. Like on a human team, you could probably have like 8 to 10 linemen on your team. In this game, we kind of wanted to mix it up and to kind of take that concept of linemen and make different variations of them. So in Myth and Goal, we have linemen broken up into Sentinels and Rangers and drawing a blank. It's not. No, it's not. It's the
Striker.
Yeah.
Just naming the positions.
You guys are confused with all these names that they're throwing out there.
Well, you said Ranger, so maybe this is a good time to bring out Brady's favorite Ranger, I guess. This is a quote unquote human team, I guess, but yet here comes Scandi Moriarty. What is he?
I'll let
He's
Brandon-
he's the best player on the team. Scottie is he's always going for more yards.
Yeah, so he's a ranger. So yeah, go the ranger. I guess he's the one who just runs, right?
Yeah, the Ranger is kind of
It's like the safety. Is that what you call it?
It's another version of a lineman. It's more of the fast offensive lineman, where they're more about running the ball, getting out of danger quickly, stuff like that. Vanguards are like the catchers, the really fast guys, but Rangers are right up there with them. Rangers and Vanguards are very similar in what they do, but Rangers are kind of like the offensive linemen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not too uncommon for the humans to recruit halflings who live amongst them, because halflings are pretty common in the empire, so they don't mind recruiting the halflings to do the legwork, so to speak.
And that was my slip. I did say guardians. That's what I meant. So the guardians are like the more defensive linemen. So you got the generalists, which are the sentinels. You got the fast ones, are the rangers, and you got the guardians, which are the more tougher defensive linemen.
Okay, so you would say the Belhurst Imperials, the quote unquote human team, is the more balanced generally, but I guess with the fact that we have different focuses and tactics available, you can pretty much make them whatever you want, right?
I would say they're the most balanced positionally. Like they have a nice mix of positionals. But if you look, for example, like the dwarf team, for example, they have more guardians. They're much more defensive, and that kind of mix gives you an idea of what they're good at. But again, like you said, team focus. Your team focus can change that quite a bit.
Well, let's switch our focus over to another team. We've got the Aetherian Sapphires, the High Elf team. I guess we'll start with
best team in the league.
Best team in the league. I will start with this guy whose name I might butcher. Brady, feel free to correct me, but I've got him as Raylick Lockrand. Is that correct?
Sure.
It's Raylick. We'll let everyone pronounce it how they want.
I have a bad habit of like barely ever pronouncing the names that I write. I like words. I prefer words over sounds. So,
so he's a vanguard, and it looks like he's got his very, very nice attire on. Their armor looks a bit more, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. Like more regal, if that makes any sense.
Fancy. I call it fancy.
Yeah.
Dapper. Yeah. So high elves are definitely my thing. Like I love high elves. They've always been my ideal choice in fantasy. I like the elves and big heavy armor. It's just a strange dichotomy that I like. But yeah, this right here is an example of a vanguard. They're the ones that are really good at running down the field and catching the ball. And
it's almost like his miniature is telling you that.
Yeah. Wanted to make sure we had kind of clear we wanted to make it clear with some of the poses what the positionals are, and like this is my catcher. This is guys, I'm going to get him in position to throw him the ball.
Well, here comes the thrower, or a striker in this case, I guess, Damon Swanson.
Yes. Strikers are they're very much like quarterbacks. You can assume that that's a good way to compare them. There's usually it's very easy to identify them on a team because they are usually holding a ball, as is clear in this one.
See here, yeah. And we're talking about guard.
This is what high elves are best at, is throwing that ball.
Right. So would you say they have a higher distribution of like better skill overall compared to the other factions?
Yes, I won't spoil it too much, because obviously, everything's still in testing and stuff like that, but they are definitely the skill team. So
all right. So just in case anyone didn't watch the playthroughs, and we'll have a how to play shortly, but essentially you've got your 4 abilities. You got power, agility. So power is usually used for tackling. Agility is usually used for evasion, and skill is usually used for throwing the ball. You also got resolve, of course, the last one, which is standing your ground essentially.
Yeah.
And speaking of standing your ground, we got Vaynor Felineth here, the guardian, or at least one of the guardians. I can't remember how many guardians there are on the high elf team, but he's definitely a guardian, and you can tell by his position here.
I believe the high elves only have 1 guardian on their team.
Right, they're concentrating on other stuff, right?
Yeah, they have 2 vanguards actually, so that's kind of where they focus. They have 2 vanguards and a striker, and then they have the rest are linemen and different kinds of and a charger, obviously. But yeah, this is their guardian. I think it looks pretty imposing for a high elf.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's even crouching down too, so he's probably slightly taller than the others. But either way,
he's ready to defend his striker.
Oh man. Let's see here. Who's next? Oh, Next, we've got my mortal enemies in my video with Mark there. We've got the Durnhold Anvils. Let's show off 2 more Guardians here, I guess. We got Stern McGunry, who is the Brady. I can't remember. He's the son of the announcer in our video, right?
Yeah.
Stock McGunry?
Yeah, youngest son, yep.
Ah, cool. So yeah, I like his pointy hat. It's pretty awesome. It looks like an anvil.
Yeah, that's actually the way for you to tell who the Guardians are on the dwarf team, because they have a few of them. But yeah, they have those really elaborate helmets.
Such as Benry Von Clint, another Guardian. And they have a very special ability that I can remember anyways, that the more Guardians you have in a row, the Durnhold Anvil specifically, the better they are at standing their ground, right? Their resolve is better.
Oh yeah, shield wall, buddy.
And look at those beards. They're so epic. And then we've got... Go ahead, sir.
I was gonna say that one is like the iconic dwarf right there in the middle.
I like their boots. They've got the intricate, I don't say runic stuff going on, but it's definitely got like an intricate, design that's kind of like ancestral or something there. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
And then we got Donald Hammerton, a Sentinel on the team. So once again, the Sentinels, they're more into, I guess, running downfield. Was that it?
Sentinels are kind of the best way to think about them is like the all-rounders. They're kind of, they're there to help out where needed.
Okay. And of course,
usually when you're a new player on a Myth and Gold team, usually you start off as a Sentinel. It's like, here, let's see how you do.
Right.
Not to say they're bad players.
Well, the dwarves are not to be underestimated. I learned that the hard way. So
yeah, they are slow, but that's not the only way to win the game.
Yeah. They stand their ground very well. And last but not least, in terms of the teams in the base game, maybe that's a spoiler, I don't know. We got the West Ark Ruffians, or West Arch potentially. I'm very bad at pronouncing some names. West Ark, yeah.
I think West Ark is the way I usually say it.
Yeah, maybe it's the North American way of saying it. I don't know. But let's see here. We've got Shagura, a Charger. And he's pointing at you because I guess he's going to charge right at you. And you can see he's actually got his mouth wide open underneath his helmet there. And he's like growling or snarling or something.
Yeah, the orcs are like just brutes, man. Like we want to make sure those miniatures, like they don't like, they don't tiptoe around, or they stand their ground and they just pummel you.
Yeah. And I can't remember if this is the one, but it might be him who has the, he has the thrill of the fight, I believe. Is that correct? The one where it encourages you to essentially just run into opposing players' areas.
I believe that's him. Yes.
Yeah. So he's pretty good. I really enjoyed playing as him. And we got his buddy Rudgrot, who he's just stomping his way towards you.
Yeah,
he's another charger.
Yeah, he's a charger, but I would also describe him as a stalker. He's just walking very, very confidently towards you to step on you.
Right, yeah. And of course, we've got Kravik. He might be one of my favorite sculpts in the game. I just love the guttural, like, he's emitting right there.
Yeah. He just basically very encapsulates the orc style. And I'm actually surprised you didn't put the Finky on there.
I wanted to, but I was like, no, let's showcase the orcs in all their powerful glory and all their six-pack glory. I mean, Finky's awesome, but he also disappointed me, I think, when I was playing with Mark. So,
you're just bitter about the goblin. You're just taking out.
But yes, in case you guys didn't notice on the page, there is a goblin in the West Ark Ruffians. Finky Dregs. He's awesome. He's got a very cool ability, which basically lets him avoid all sorts of tackles as long as he has someone else from his team in the same area. So if you're playing smart, he's practically invincible. So he's really cool.
Yeah, and then there's also a free agent version of him, so you can go ahead and hire a second goblin. What is it? Goblin Ranger.
Yeah. So once again, I guess just to clarify for people, so the free agents in the game, you've got your named characters, but you also have free agent versions of them. That's why you have a duplicate version of their mini in the game. And also, I don't know if you noticed in the add-ons, we have a mirror match pack. So if ever you're really, really keen on having, some sort of wizardry happen where, Shagura is facing Shagura, and so on and so forth, you can definitely make that happen. with that pack as well. And you also have, of course, the ability to play as the same faction. So
also, that also applies to the add-on standee version game. So like
Yes.
if you wanted an extra version of everything in the box besides the miniatures, that's actually a pretty good economical way to do it, where you can get a second box and bam, you have enough to run 2 games at once, and you can have all the mirror matches you want.
Right, yeah. So one thing about we had a rookie pledge announced, which is basically the base game, and it has standees in there for those of you guys who, you know, you just want to try the game out, but you don't want to go, you know, all into the bling area. That's perfect for you, and it also works perfectly as a sort of like quote-unquote league box, I guess you could say, which gives you all the components you need to run a secondary game at the same time, so you can have those crazy game days with your friends, you know, playing multiple tables. So we're super excited about that. I personally have a lot of great memories of playing various other fantasy sports games and having, you know, a game day with multiple concurrent games happening. Very, very fun. Okay, well, I guess we'll go back to our previous scene. Again, the echo might kick in briefly here. Apologies ahead of time. Okay, I've switched off the duplicate audio so you can stop holding your breath. You should be good. I'll have to find a way to have that automated. I'm still a beginner with this whole OBS thing. Right, so I guess we'll go back to a couple more questions in the chat, and then we'll call it a day. We got another 10 minutes or so. So let's see what we got. I'm going to scroll back up here. So many comments and questions. Okay.
I gotta say, I do like you managing all this stuff for me, Scottie. Appreciate that. Apparently, we should do it this way more often.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fun to be able to interact a bit more often too. You know, we don't get to see each other enough in person.
I also like it looks prettier though. You got like the background, like the crowd's cheering us on back there.
Well, you know, I want to give the audience a show. You know, something nice to look at. You know. All right, so let's see here.
Hey, James is there.
Oh, James is here?
I see him in the chat.
Oh, well, hello, James.
Hey, James, everybody wants you to join us on one of these next time, so let us know when you're free. We'll have a big old party.
And I did see Ryan Nieders also jumped in. So, hey, Ryan, how's it going, man? Nice to see you.
Hey, Ryan.
Ryan read my novel in a weekend.
That's
Thanks, Ryan.
He gave me feedback like in 2 days. He read 100,000 plus words. It's
is pretty impressive. I like to read, but I'm slow. Okay,
me too.
Let's see.
Reading puts me to sleep.
So Mark and Not Board Gaming is challenging me to a rematch again. So yep, we'll totally do it. This time I will be victorious. The campaign for solo, I guess this kind of falls into the whole, campaign story thing we were talking about earlier. So that could be something to consider for the future potentially. I might scroll a little too high here. It's unclear in the rule book. Does running a player into a square in the opposing bastion score, or does it have to be the center square immediately behind the hoop?
I believe that actually in one previous version of the playtest rules, I believe it was the center square, but now it's the bastion is
all three
of those back squares.
Otherwise, I'd never score.
Called overkill. We got to run it in. That's called showboating.
I was gonna say
back there and you slam it down and like I made it all the way back.
I was gonna suggest to James to make that worth an extra point if you can make it all the way there.
Yeah. What else you got? More fine tuning is needed for the solo AI. Do we know how much more work is needed? But like we said earlier, I guess it's just a matter of making sure that we like it before it's presented in the TTS mod. Right? I don't think there's anything more than that. It's just a matter of making sure we like it.
Yeah, it's not like it's still under.
Yeah, it's practically
heavy
there. It's fine tuning.
Yeah.
Could you speak to the size of the pitch, the field? It seems very small. Not many places for figures to roam. I've got something to say about that, but Go ahead. I think you do as well.
I was gonna say I have something to say about it. It's perfect.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No, it's actually a very conscious decision early on. I really wanted to have something. The board size to be somewhat similar to like what's in the Blitzball game. Like I like that table presence. And we also wanted areas as opposed to, like, this is something James decided early on. He wanted areas for movement aside from grids, and it also not only sets it apart, but it also makes it really interesting and simple when it comes to like supporting characters during the game. It's like I have one of my players in my square with me, so I get a bonus. I don't have to count up every single square around me.
Yeah,
and,
the adjacency, you get bogged down on that. This is more, it kind of creates those little like huddles and stuff, and it's just all in all, it removes a lot of the I don't say unnecessary granularity. Some people like want the granularity, but there's just you
get the same experience quicker.
Yes, yeah, it's easier to explain certain things. The effects trigger easier. You're not wasting time counting distances and all this stuff. It just works. It keeps the game.
Yeah, I also found just that it created a more intense experience. If anything, because in other games you might be like, all right, I'll send some guys forward, that's fine. But in this, you're constantly playing not only for your offense, but you're still thinking about your defense for the inevitable counterattack. Because the way scoring works in this game, there's no reset to the skirmish line or anything. It's pretty much, it picks up and it goes again. So if you sent all your guys forward and then you score and then the opposing team gets the ball and manages to pull off some crazy pass, you've just left your defenses open. So that small field really makes you think about both all the time, and it's a better experience for it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and there's pros and cons to whichever way you go. I mean, people can always figure out what pros and cons from a personal standpoint. Some people have tastes that differ, but I mean, it's the same thing with like an area control game. Like if you may have an area control game and you have lots of areas, you have places to hide, you have places to evade. You're kind of avoiding some of the actual core essences of the game. So the less places you have to fight over, naturally it's going to be more interesting, and there's going to be more conflict and everything. And that's kind of the idea behind this. You have less places to go hide and avoid stuff. You're just going straight into it, and you're focusing on the interactions.
And also a big part of it is you only have 5 players on your team at one time. So you don't have a ton, and you have 4 actions. So you don't even have 5 actions. You have 4 actions with 5 players. So it's not like you can do everything you want to do on your turn.
The idea is making those tough decisions, and it focuses on that over having more options tactically, where it's like, well, I can move this many spaces this way and dodge this guy. It's more just focusing on the direct conflict.
Right. We got Melanie Dawn, who says, I'm mad at you guys getting me into this. I had planned on skipping it, but I'm all in now. Love BLG. Thank you, Melanie.
Sorry.
Well, sorry, and
thank
you.
Sorry.
Awesome having you as a backer.
Glad to have you here.
I saw a lot of comments about the minis looking alike. Can you ease some minds about this? Well, I think we did a good job showing how very different they are. Once you've got them up close, they've got some very intricate details, and they do look very different. And we do have a couple of like orcs, for example, who might look very similar, because an orc is an orc, right? But some of them have, 1 shoulder pad versus 2. There's very different ways, and they match their art, so on their card.
Yeah, the art. Yeah, it's hard to tell from that distance on that image, but you have those close up. You can see the art that it mirrors it. And
I will say also that it was a very conscious decision early on by me when I was working with the sculptor and the artist to make sure that the players on the teams looked like they were all part of the same team, and that the positionals looked similar, because I want to make sure I know this is my guard. These are my guardians. This guy's my striker because he's at the ball. Like all these little elements that. They might seem kind of subtle when you're looking at a huge spread of all the miniatures together in gray plastic,
but you won't have all them on the board.
You're only going to have 5 on the board, and you have your cards there as well. So it's very easy in practice to see who's who. And even if it took a second to process which one you're looking at, it's not a long game, so it's not like it's a huge amount of time involved in identifying which player's which.
Yeah.
But again, there's all kinds of solutions they could do if players do have trouble. I mean, you can even take a Sharpie and just write numbers on the back of the miniatures if you want.
And another big thing too, we may have done a disservice the way we presented the miniatures just because we wanted to show everything. We wanted to show backers, here's everything you get. And that's a lot to take in, but like you won't have to process that when you're playing a game. So we didn't want to take an easier route and maybe just avoid that. We'd rather just show you everything you're getting, because I think it's important to show that here's the value, here's all the stuff you're getting. But again, just remember, you're not setting up a board with all those figures and trying to differentiate them.
Exactly. You're gonna have your 5 guys on the field at the same time. You'll know what they look like once you get them on the board, and you're good to go. And again, I think they all look very different once you actually see them up close. And speaking of which, like Brady was saying, the image itself might have done a disservice because they were all clumped together. But in updates, we'll definitely be showcasing all the teams, and we'll be showing the minis in their full glory. So kind of like what we did here, so that you can see them and really appreciate all the intricate details that are in them.
Yeah, and I will make a comment. Like while we do always listen to our backers and try to give people what they want, like for example the standy version of the game, that was definitely not something we were planning on doing. But we saw people asking for it and we wanted to make it available to people. There are people asking like, oh, can you make this change to this miniature? Probably more than likely not, because these have been meticulously worked on and made sure that they were exactly how we wanted them to be. And if we change something after a Kickstarter, you're gonna basically what we have showing right now is what people are backing for. You might not, you might not love everything if you have a problem with something, but there's a lot of people backing a project and they pretty much expect what they're seeing. So making a change can have all kinds of different problems with lots of other people that aren't talking in the comments and all that stuff. So it's very delicate process when you're doing something creative like this, but we invested a lot of money in art and sculpts, and it's kind of like the vision of what we wanted for the game. So while I know that it might not be exactly what everybody wants, I'm hopeful that you'll still find things you like about it.
The game itself with the minis has incredible table presence. So I think it looks fantastic. And again, I mean, we do have the minis that match the art exactly as well. So that art is amazing. We've shown it a lot, but we'll show it more in the updates for sure.
Yeah, I think I made a comment on this. I think this is the most we've ever spent on art for any project we've ever done.
Yeah. And we got Ross here saying he knows a guy who wants the minis but not the game. Why aren't the minis available individually?
So this is something
it'd be like the same cost on those.
Yeah, this is something we're discussing. Like we couldn't really offer it at a reasonable price where it didn't make sense not to just get the game anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean, even if you don't play the game or don't even care about the game, it's still a good deal getting 4 full fantasy football teams for $109. Like I can't find that anywhere.
It's not easy to advertise that way, but that's kind of the idea behind it, because we wanted to make a product where if somebody did just want miniatures because either they're a fan of sports games that they play otherwise, like this is still a great box of miniatures that happens to have a game there if you ever want to try it out. You don't have to buy it just for the game, but it's a great deal for the minis. So if we were to make the miniatures available, it wouldn't be at a significant enough discount that you're better off just getting that game because it's already packaged.
Plus, if anything, they can think of it
removes a lot of unnecessary SKUs involved in the process.
Right, and they can think of it as getting 4 full teams and a game as a bonus. And I mean, I don't know about you, but again, if I want to get my sister to play a game with me, other bigger fantasy sports games ain't gonna happen. But this is actually pretty quick to teach, and I know she'd probably be into it. So maybe you can get people into fantasy sports, a different fantasy sports, but fantasy sports nonetheless.
And we should also mention more stretch goals that unlock. That deal gets sweeter.
I was going to mention that because if we hit even half of the stretch goals we have planned, it's going to be a crazy good deal for that amount.
You just want the miniatures. You're pretty much going to be making a killing.
So what you're saying is 4 teams. ...
Yeah.
4 teams plus question.
So another person basically saying James is awesome. So yes, James is awesome.
Yes.
His enthusiasm is always a joy to behold. Yeah, they're great people. I'm super happy we're getting to work with them. I've always loved their designs, and they're just great people all around.
I still want Hellboy. Haven't got Hellboy yet, but I hear
it's a great game. It's a great game. I enjoy it. And I'll be honest, I don't even know like the comics that much. I'm more of like a movie Hellboy guy, but don't hold that against me, people. I read some of the comics, but I enjoyed the game a lot, even without knowing the comics. Is the weakest stat to have a high score in? It seems to be. Oh, is power the weakest stat to have a high score in? It seems to be the only stat that can only impact one roll or action, such as tackling. Every other stat seems to impact 2 at least. Do you think this is balanced?
Well, I'll say the amount of tackling, how good tackling can be, I think is also something to consider. Not just how many different actions you do, but how powerful that action is. Like tackling somebody and putting them down out of the way, that's pretty good. And there's also something to keep in mind while there's only 4 basic actions, there's lots of unique actions that players can have. So power might come into play in other ways that are just not clear off the bat. So.
Okay. Well, we are getting close to the 1 o'clock mark.
I'll just echo what James said. Power only impacts 1 roll, but it's a roll you make a lot.
Yeah, and it's a crucial one. So not having that power will cost you. See if there's any other quick ones here. Sorry if I'm missing any questions, everyone. I'm just trying to, get to as many new.
There's only one
new questions here. Oh, Alice is here. Hey, Alice. Nice to see you. Thanks again for joining us. Since okay, we answered this. Whoops. A lot of good comments here. Love the customization options. I was concerned about distinguishing them when I saw them in the Kickstarter. Seeing them now all at once didn't give me the same feeling. Hope there will be a gameplay video with minis. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we can't get the minis in the TTS mod for various reasons. I know it's not the same as, you know, seeing the minis in action, but hopefully you get to enjoy the gameplay from the TTS mod nonetheless.
Yeah, and I'll say it right now, like, I've seen people commenting about miniatures stuff like that, which is fine. Everybody can, you know, have their own opinions on the miniatures. That's totally fine.
It's normal.
It's something that I'm very used to by now. But from my perspective, I just want everybody to remember, keep in mind that when I was working on this project, I was basically in what's I'm looking for. I'm intentionally going for a specific approach where I'm a pretty big collector of like Blood Bowl miniatures, and I think Games Workshop probably makes some of the best miniatures around. Like, I mean, it's hard to compete with Games Workshop miniature. They're just amazingly good. But that being said, my Blood Bowl teams that I play, there's a lot of times where it's hard to tell which my teammates are or which are which, because they're hard to distinguish because they look like they're all on the same team, and the poses aren't that like crazy dynamic, you know. So I don't see that argument as strongly as other people see it, I guess, because like I said,
it comes down to preference a lot too. But I mean, I'm the same way where like I have the Halfling Blood Bowl team, and all my Halflings are the same. Like there's like 2 poses I think, and they're all the same,
they're duplicated. So.
Yeah. And it's like I'm fine with that. Like, but it's something that, like, even though I don't play Blood Bowl a ton, it was never an issue for me. So like I don't think this on such a smaller scale is. I can't imagine it being an actual issue when you're engaged in the game. I can see it being a concern up front, you know, and we talked about that before. It's like the way we presented it, that might not have been the best way in that context, but you have to remember that you're taking small portions of that, and you're going to be familiar enough close hand that.
Well, I think it's also important too. There's a lot of things you can do on a player side. If there's something where if you have an issue identifying a player, there's a lot of solutions you could do for that. But I don't see it being a big concern affecting gameplay much at all. So
yeah.
Well, I guess with that, we'll end it here. But I just want to thank everyone for joining us, for all their comments and their support. Thank you everyone for helping us fund. That's amazing. We can't wait to see all the cool stretch goals we're about to unlock.
Yes, thank you so much for backing everybody.
Yes, to everyone who helped out.
Yes.
And I can't wait to show you the stretch goals we have planned.
It was like just under 24 hours too.
Right
so
under.
like, and then 24-hour fun.
But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this format. Let us know in the comments, you know, if this is something you'd like to see us do more often. If anything, we hope to have a few more streams at least during the campaign. Again, we'll try to rope James in. And, you know, if there's any topics you want to see us cover. But of course, you know, we'll have all sorts of topics to discuss as the campaign reveals new stuff. But yeah, until then, thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.